Clinical characteristics of psychopathology. So you need to be aware of behavioural, emotional and cognitive characteristics of the three mental health issues that you are studying. So the behavioural, emotional and cognitive characteristics of phobias, depression and OCD. So in relation to phobias, the emotional characteristics are fear, which leads to anxiety. So the person will be extremely fearful in response to the phobic stimulus, which could lead to them feeling extremely anxious in the presence or even the thought of that stimulus. The response is disproportionate to the threat, so it is quite irrational, the response to the feared stimulus. They have selective attention to the stimulus, and those beliefs are irrational. So it might not be rational to hold a fear of what they have a phobia of, and they are normally aware that their phobia is irrational. Selective attention to the stimulus means that when that thing is present in the room, they need to pay attention to where that thing is at all times. So if I had a phobia of spiders, I would have to be aware and paying attention to where that spider was in the room at all times. Behavioural, so as a result of the irrational beliefs and the anxiety and fear that the stimulus is creating, they might induce a panic attack, an anxiety attack. They might be screaming, running away or shaking in response to the phobic stimulus. Or they might avoid that stimulus. That will be important later on when we look at the behavioural explanations of phobias. So they will do anything in their power to avoid having to confront that feared stimulus. Depression. So the emotional characteristics of depression include poor concentration and decision making, and lowered feelings of self-worth and mood. So generally the person will seem very pessimistic about their own self, their conditions of worth. They will feel worthless, not worthy of love, interaction with others. They have absolutist thinking, that is, they see things in total black and white. Things that might not be considered as disastrous to non-depressive individuals will seem absolutely catastrophic in response to the person with depression. They might also have anger and aggression as a result of having depression. So they might have reduced levels of energy, so they can't get out of bed. A person with depression might find it very hard to get themselves motivated in the mornings. Also, there might be a change in sleeping and eating habits. Now, it's important to notice it can be a change. So depression can manifest itself in different ways. So a person might either eat more than they normally do, or they might eat less than they normally do. They might change their sleeping habits in that they might have insomnia, so they are sleeping a lot less than what they used to, or they are sleeping a lot more than they used to. So it's all about considering what the person used to be like before the onset of depression. So if we were to look at OCD, the emotional characteristics are anxiety and distress. So a person with OCD will be very anxious in certain situations, in particular if they are confronting a thing that they have obsessions about. They might also have feelings of guilt and disgust. So their cognitive characteristics include thoughts that are obsessive and reoccurring. So they have continuous thoughts that take over and control their life about certain things. They are generally over-aware, so they are hyper-vigilant about certain hazards and potentials. So germs hazards around them, cross-contamination, etc. Now, these obsessive thoughts and anxiety will result in them having repetitive behaviour, so the compulsion aspect of obsessive compulsive disorders. So, for example, they might have anxiety and obsessive thoughts about germs and bacteria and getting ill. So they'll have to wash their hands about 10 times in order to try and reduce that anxiety, that obsessive thought that they have germs and they will get ill as a result of having bacteria and pathogens on their hands. So if we were to look at some past paper questions, so Rob always checks the doors are locked and plug sockets are switched off. His checking routine has become very time consuming. He now feels overwhelmed with fear that his family could be in danger if he does not complete his checking routine. His doctor thinks that Rob has obsessive compulsive disorder. Explain what is meant by obsessions and compulsions. Refer to Rob in your answer. So you're going to get 1 mark for your definition of compulsion, and application will get you the 2nd mark. You will then get a 3rd mark for your definition of compulsions and application of where Rob is showing compulsions. So 1 mark for obsessions. So obsessions are intrusive, reoccurring, unwanted thoughts. So if we were to apply that to Rob, you would discuss that 1 mark for the application is where is he describing obsessive and reoccurring thoughts? Well, he is overwhelmed with fear that his family will be in danger due to him. Compulsions are the repetitive behaviours and acts. So in the scenario, where is Rob displaying that? Well, Rob is constantly checking that if the doors are locked and the plug sockets are switched off before he can leave the house. So there would be your 4 marks. You might get other questions like this, so outline characteristics of either phobic disorders or obsessive compulsive disorders, outline characteristics of depression for 4 marks.